Some people are not hard to love. They are just hard to read. From the outside, they seem calm, capable, even detached. But inside, their mind rarely goes quiet. They notice tone before words. They catch what changed before anyone explains it. They can feel a room tightening long before the first uncomfortable sentence appears. And because they notice so much, they often carry more than they show. That is one of the loneliest parts of being deeply perceptive. You look fine while absorbing everything. People assume intelligence makes life easier, but sometimes it just makes certain pain more visible. You see patterns early. You sense distance before abandonment has a name. You hear hesitation in someone saying, "I'm just tired." You notice when warmth becomes politeness. And now your body knows something your life has not caught up to yet. That gap can make you seem anxious. It can make you seem intense. But often, you are not inventing problems. You are detecting them before they fully arrive. This is why highly intelligent people often struggle in ordinary relationships, not because they care less, but because they register more. A simple text delay can mean nothing, or it can reveal a shift in investment. A casual joke at dinner can be harmless, or it can expose quiet contempt. Most people move through life by reacting to what becomes obvious, but some people live by sensing what is still subtle. That ability can save you. It can also exhaust you, because when your mind is trained to read beneath the surface, rest becomes strangely difficult. You do not just hear what someone said, you hear what they avoided. You do not just remember the meeting, you remember who looked away when credit was given. You do not just attend family gatherings, you track the alliances, the old wounds, the silence after certain names. So eventually, you start doing something that looks cold from the outside. You pull back. You answer later. You leave early. You keep parts of yourself unspoken until you know the room is safe enough. And people call that distance. What they often miss is the history behind it. Some minds were shaped by being right too early, by noticing red flags no one wanted to name, by sensing betrayal, imbalance, or dishonesty, and then being told they were overthinking. That changes a person. Not dramatically at first, but quietly. You learn that seeing clearly does not always make you welcome. So, you start editing yourself. You soften your instincts. You laugh things off. You stay agreeable longer than your body wants to. Not because you are weak, because you are tired of paying the social price for accuracy. This is where intelligence becomes an identity conflict. You are praised for insight, but punished for its consequences. People admire your depth until your depth notices something inconvenient. They love how thoughtful you are until your questions interrupt the fantasy they are living in. They want your honesty as long as it stays comfortable. So you begin carrying a strange contradiction. You crave closeness, but closeness without truth feels unbearable. You want to trust, but your mind keeps seeing where trust is not yet earned. You want to relax, but your nervous system has learned that details matter. This is why some intelligent adults look guarded in very ordinary moments. A birthday dinner, an office conversation, a first date. Everyone else seems to glide. They are quietly calculating emotional weather. Not to control it, to survive it. And after enough years like that, you may start wondering if the problem is your mind itself. Maybe you are too serious, too observant, too hard to please. Maybe peace would come if you could just stop noticing so much. But that is not the real solution. The real solution is discernment. Not every pattern deserves pursuit. Not every shift deserves a story. One of the most mature forms of intelligence is learning what to examine and what to release. Because seeing everything is not wisdom. Knowing what actually matters is. There is a difference between awareness and constant internal surveillance. One protects your life. The other slowly consumes it. And many bright people were never taught that difference. They were only taught to trust their mind. So they did. Even when their mind became a full-time alarm system. Even when they were lying awake replaying a harmless comment from noon. Even when a weekend trip with friends felt more draining than an actual deadline. Even when love became less about connection and more about interpretation. Because when you are used to reading between the lines, you can forget to live inside them. You start trying to decode people instead of simply meeting them. You anticipate disappointment before tenderness gets a fair chance. You prepare for the shift in tone, the delayed call, the soft withdrawal. And sometimes that preparation looks like wisdom. Sometimes it is grief rehearsing itself. That is a painful truth many intelligent people do not recognize soon enough. Not every strong intuition is fear, but fear can learn to borrow the voice of intuition. It can sound measured. It can sound responsible. It can say, "I'm just being realistic," when it is really trying to prevent heartbreak in advance. So, part of growing wiser is becoming more honest about what is perception and what is protection. That honesty changes everything. It makes room for a softer kind of clarity, the kind that does not need to solve every silence, the kind that can let a moment remain unfinished, the kind that knows uncertainty is not always danger. This does not mean ignoring what you feel. It means not worshiping every signal. It means asking, is this insight, or is this an old wound looking for proof? That question alone can save years of emotional exhaustion, because brilliance without gentleness can become its own prison. You can understand everyone in the room and still have no mercy for yourself. You can explain your habits perfectly and still feel secretly ashamed of them. You can be the person others come to for perspective while feeling strangely impossible to comfort. That is another hidden cost. Intelligent people are often understood functionally, not emotionally. Others trust their judgment, rely on their calm, lean on their language. But few people ask what it feels like to carry a mind like that all day. To need depth in a world built for speed. To need sincerity in a culture built on performance. To want real conversation and keep being handed scripts. To long for rest and keep producing insight instead. So if you have felt distant lately, it may not be because you have become less loving. It may be because your inner world has been doing too much unpaid labor. Reading people, managing impressions, anticipating outcomes, trying to stay open without becoming naive, trying to stay discerning without becoming cold. That balancing act is invisible, but it is real, and maybe that is the reframe you needed. Your exhaustion is not random. Your guardedness is not proof that something is wrong with your heart. It may be evidence that your mind has been overprotecting a heart that still wants to trust. That deserves compassion, not criticism. You do not need to become less perceptive to find peace. You may just need relationships where perception is not your only safety tool, where honesty arrives before you have to detect it, where warmth is consistent enough to believe, where you are not always the one reading the emotional temperature for everyone else, where you can say, something feels off, and not be punished for naming it, where your sensitivity is not treated like a problem to manage. That is not asking for too much. That is asking for conditions where your nervous system can finally unclench. And when that happens, something beautiful begins to return. Your humor comes back first, then your curiosity, then the version of you that does not need to scan every room for hidden meaning. You become lighter, not because you know less, but because you no longer carry everything alone. That is the healthiest future for a perceptive mind. Not dulling it, not denying it, just giving it somewhere honest enough to rest. So if you have spent years feeling complicated, difficult, or emotionally too much, maybe the deeper truth is simpler. Maybe your mind learned to be sharp because your life asked it to. And now the next chapter is not becoming less intelligent. It is becoming safe enough to be unguarded without becoming unsafe. That is a very different kind of strength. Quieter, softer, more complete. And maybe the smartest thing you will ever do is stop treating your tenderness like a liability. Because beneath all your pattern recognition, all your caution, all your depth, there is still a very human hope. To be met without having to explain every layer. To be loved without having to translate your silence. To finally exhale in the presence of someone honest. And if that is what you have been missing, you were never asking for too much. You were asking for something real. And your mind knew the difference all along.